Hey guys, this is Butch from the Vintage Media Grading Podcast. And before we start, I just want to give a shameless plug to Vintage Media Grading. VMG is your source for grading, authenticating, and slabbing your precious vinyl records. In addition, we offer a host of other services, including cleaning and sticker removal, as well as soft grading, which is a way to get your albums graded, but still allow you to spin your records and listen to your tunes. Come visit us at www.vmgvinyl.com to place your orders, or feel free to contact us at info@vmgvinyl.com. Hope you enjoy the podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Vintage Media Grading, the podcast. I am Andrew Hoffman. I have here with me Butch, Paul, Chad with VMG. How are you guys?
Excellent. Happy to be back.
Yeah, it's been a decent week. It's nice to be in the studio with you fine gentlemen. So today, what are we talking about? We're talking about Green Day. Green Day is going to be our topic. Look at some rare releases, cool releases, and different facts and figures. So what about Green Day, Paul? Did you have any releases that you wanted to talk about?
Green Day was interesting. I think everyone's introduction to Green Day was Dookie.
Yeah.
In '94. And I remember in 7th grade that was the album that everybody listened to, and everybody knew every song. That had 6 singles on it or something crazy. But as you got more and more into Green Day, then you realize that they had other albums before Dookie, and getting those was back then impossible. You had to go. They didn't have it at Record Town at the Crystal Mall in '94. You couldn't get Punk. You definitely couldn't get 39 Smooth. So those two are pretty interesting to talk about from a vinyl perspective.
Yeah, fire away then.
Yeah, Paul. So it's up to you if you had one ready to go, or
no, go ahead. I knew you had a bunch of.
I'm glad you brought up the early ones, because the band's career is pretty interesting. Where '94 Dookie was huge. And then they really had a resurgence in the early 2000s with American Idiot. And they had mega hits in between, but it seemed like they were kind of, alt rock, and the genre was not really in the forefront, in the early 2000s. And, it was more like new metal and that kind of music. And then American Idiot was huge. And, if you look back, they're probably one of the biggest American bands of all time.
Yeah, definitely one of the most successful. I mean, they were pretty much consistently put out consistent hits from '94 to today. I mean, they still put out hits. Musicals, I mean, you name it. They're as big as you can get pretty much from that era.
Yeah, and like you were saying, I love early or pre-rookie cards when it comes to card collecting. So when I found out, I always thought when, in '94 Dookie was a debut album, and then learning that they had 2 albums before that. And then I think Drew's going to talk a little bit about the 7-inch, that they released a bunch of 7-inch albums even before that on various different colors. But so 39 Smooth is their first album. The unique thing about it, the way to tell if it's an original pressing or a re-release, is the address on the back. So re-releases have Berkeley, California. The original one has a different address. that it's what is it, Layonette, I believe. Or I completely butchered it, so you may have to. It's Laytonville. I could be butchering that wrong too.
That sounds more real. The other one sounds like a completely fake. It's probably why I didn't recognize it.
The way I remember it is, if it has the Berkeley address, then it's not the one I'm looking for. So oddly, I didn't know the exact name of the town, but that's that on the back album cover. It's like on the upper right. The Berkeley one is the repress. The original should have as I remember it, town that begins with an L for the 1990 pressing.
Okay. Good.
You're not running out and buying that much? That wasn't
no,
enough
I
to
mean, I'll definitely. I looked for it. Last time we went to Austin, I saw a guy selling it, and I had to, ask him to pull it down and look at the back, and it was Berkeley, so I didn't buy it.
Threw it back at him.
Yeah,
that's just regular.
Smashed it over his head like Roddy Piper on Jimmy Snuka with a coconut on Jimmy Snuka's head.
That's just regular black vinyl, right?
No, it's actually so the first pressing should be on like a. There was black, but there's also green.
Okay, so like Dookie was on green too originally.
Yep.
They did. Drew, you were going to talk about 1,000 Hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we talk about that since?
But
that
you can go. You can go ahead and Mm-hmm.
No, I was just going to mention that before 39 Smooth, they did have a 7-inch in 1989 called 1,000 Hours. So that's really their debut release. It was on black vinyl with an orange insert. It was produced in that town that Chad was talking about, Laytonville. It has a Laytonville address, and about 1,000 were published, pressed.
Yeah, and it normally has like a green outer sleeve or like a whitish greenish outer sleeve. Something that's interesting about that one, there's only a couple known to exist, and it's ultra rare. When they were printing that EP, they ran out of green paper, and they needed to finish them off, and so they had a little bit of pink paper to use. So there's like a very small number, like I'm talking about only like a few, and those are available out there somewhere floating around. But
yeah,
if you see 1,000 Hours, an original with the pink sleeve, buy it as soon as you can, because there's only a handful out there, and they're
the same thing with the insert too. The common one had an orange insert, but there's a rarer white insert version.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, they didn't get their paper inventory down on that release.
All right, so you guys want to jump into the obvious discussion of Dookie and
right.
their famous sellout album, which was, I love the talk of sellouts. Like a band is supposed to just sit around and sell 1,000 copies of an album to 1,000 kids in their basement, and that's supposed to be the life cycle of an entire band. Like, oh, you should just be happy making $9,000 a year. Like, yeah, it's fine, cool. And then they sell, make an album that sells. How many did it even sell? I mean, it had to have approached over 5 million, I would think.
20 million, over 20 million.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, it was highly successful.
I didn't realize it got that high. And then they get, crapped on by the 10 people who probably, owned their original albums, and God forbid they succeed, and God forbid they make music that is catchy and enjoyable.
Well, and you can have the argument go the other way. I love their original albums. In fact, Kerplunk is one of my favorite albums from Green Day, and we had a client send in one for an audio transfer, and I sat down and listened to it, and I was like, man, this is like an audiophile record. I mean, the thing was so clean, so dynamic, so clear, and for it to be a punk album, I was like, I heard like all the detail and all the different instruments. They did a very good job on it. The music was good. It has a version of Welcome to Paradise, I think is what the name of that song is.
Yep.
It has like a raw, like the original version of that song. So it's kind of like raw and underproduced, and that was a lot of fun to listen to on that album. I think there's some newer represses out there of that album that you can listen to, or you can stream it. Great album, but you could have that same argument there. I mean, back then they were like a punk band, and punk, got a little bit repetitive and all kind of sounded the same as well. And to be successful, you're going to have to create music that people want. It's just like any other business, and it's supply and demand. And so I think Green Day was so successful because they made punk music, but they actually made it very accessible, and they knew the earworms. They had all the hooks, and you could tell that they were kind of downplaying themselves. Like they were now able to start, especially in their later stuff. I can't remember the name of that song now that he played on an acoustic guitar. But yeah.
Graduation song, basically.
Yes, and you could tell that they were really good musicians. They had heart, they had soul, they had pride in their music, and we just started to see that in Dookie. And you got to imagine too that, I mean, it made it popular when a lot of these other, like Nirvana was releasing a lot. You were getting a lot of really cool grunge music in the day, and to break into that alternative grunge scene the way they did, it was great timing.
Just interesting note on Good Riddance. Good Riddance was actually written during the Dookie sessions, and actually, or before the Dookie sessions. I think it was written in '93, and he chose not to even show it to the band because he thought it was too wimpy, I guess. And it first shows up as a B-side to one of their hits, just on the European version of of the single for Brain Stew Jaded, which was a pretty big Green Day hit on their follow-up album. It's a little different sounding. It's a little faster. And I think it's in a different key.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Sun grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. It's not a question, but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind. Hang it on a shelf of good health and good time. Tattoos of memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life.
But yeah, interesting. It actually predates Nimrod.
Interesting.
The from a vinyl collectability perspective, the cool thing about Dookie, I think, is there were 10,000 green vinyl numbered releases. So 10,000 is kind of a lot for that for 94, when vinyl really wasn't the most popular way to consume music. But still 10,000, relatively speaking, on something that sold 20 million albums worldwide is still a pretty small number. So if you're lucky enough to find one, it sells for a decent amount too. It's usually sells for about $500 or $600. Has a cool hype sticker, usually on like the left-hand side, that says green vinyl. It's I think if you're looking for a variant of Dookie, that would be my pick.
And there's a few different colors of it though, right? There's a pink version, a marbled version, I think a regular black. So they all in 94, and those are just US pressings.
And then, Chad, you want to talk about the back?
Yeah, the other cool thing about that is there's Ernie, I believe, on the back that Sesame Street put a cease and desist on, so they had to change the back cover a little bit. It's not something. I mean, I had that CD. I don't ever remember. Maybe I had a later CD. That's why I don't ever remember any Sesame Street characters on the back. But on the original vinyl, the first pressing should have Ernie on the back.
Interesting. I'll have to check
Right.
that out.
It's a
Like a puppet.
yeah. It's a shot of a crowd at one of their concerts, and someone's holding up an Ernie puppet.
Which I don't know the backstory. I don't know why somebody would bring an Ernie puppet to a concert.
The numbered green one they're talking about, that's not a US release though, right? The numbered green are from Germany. They're German pressings. The US pressings were were pink, black, and in a promo marbled, and a promo green transparent.
Which one would you want?
I don't know, anything numbered is kind of cool. The German one is the one with the height that you're talking about, I think anyway.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for individually numbered things.
The US ones are a little bit different. And I don't know how many pressings of each were made, but the green and the green transparent and the marbled one are both promos. And then they had a regular black and then a pink stereo pressing, which is a repress in 94, but repressed.
Okay, yeah, the copy that I had originally had an Ernie on the back, so I definitely remember that. I just looked it up on Discogs for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I remembered that too. Obviously in the last 5 to 10 years, I've seen the vinyl and noticed it. But when I first learned about that, I could have sworn my CD that I had in 1994 had Ernie on it.
Mm-hmm.
It must have been pulled later.
Did your CD have a brown like jewel case?
Yeah,
or black?
Yeah, I know the brown is the first. Like was in the early years.
Yeah, I don't remember.
If it
like
was
the tray where you pop the CD on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Well, the pink one does not. The Ernie's airbrushed out.
Yeah, that's a repress. The pink one.
It's still from 94 though.
Yep.
Which I mean, I know this is just my own what I gravitate to for collecting. I like first pressings or early pressings of so the pink wax is interesting, but the fact that it's re-released makes it less attractive for the things that I collect for anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to know how many of the blue marbled and the translucent green were pressed. Those are both promos, so assuming they were limited press. But I can't find an exact number that came out.
Yeah, if anyone listening knows, write into info@vmgvinyl.com and let us know. We'd love to hear the feedback.
Paul and I, we can just ask our mom directly. She does not have any.
She doesn't have the green. No, she doesn't have the promo.
usually doesn't. There's lots of unofficial versions, but it wasn't really repressed officially until the mid 2008.
So one of the Green Day 7-inch releases that I'm looking for is their Waiting single. There is one that is very hard to find. Only 200 of them were made, and they were made as a promotion in Japan. So they're not even a U.S. pressing. But it's Green Day Waiting, and it has the pink, like hot pink vinyl, a hot green center label. But on the front cover, the album artwork is kind of like a obscure picture of a guitar. And then Billy Joe Armstrong actually autographed the front cover, and then he took pink ink and did a thumbprint on each one, which I think is really cool. So, I think there's only one on Discogs right now, and it's almost $700. So,
what year was that, Drew?
That's 2001.
Okay.
So just before the American Idiot album was released. But yeah, 200 of those were made. And it was released on Adeline Records.
Any other 7-inch interesting stuff?
There was a cool one that I heard about. Now this one is, unicorn type stuff, because apparently only one exists, but it's the White Slappy single, and there's only one copy that was pressed on white vinyl, and it was sold on eBay back in 2006. I don't know for what, but I'm sure it's worth a lot more nowadays.
What was it, Drew? What
White Slappy, and yeah, it's a Green Day single, but it's on white vinyl.
Oh, that is sweet.
It's interesting. Do you have any idea of the backstory, or?
No, I don't know why there was only one copy in white. Maybe it was a test pressing or something. I don't know.
So Slappy was the EP before 39 Smooth, right? They put up 1,000 Hours and Slappy, then 39 Smooth, and then they were Slappy and 1,000 Hours were kind of combined into a compilation album in between before Kaplunk, I think.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet one. I would love to find out who. I know who sold it. It was Larry Livermore, but I don't know who bought it. But it's considered the rarest Green Day vinyl release ever.
Wow, very cool.
That's really interesting. That's the sort of thing that I think is, makes collecting fun, is finding the stuff that once a band makes it big, really digging in and trying to find the stuff that was released, before they were megastars. And then this is a really unique thing. If it's like, piece unique, one of one, that's, that's extreme rarity. But there's a lot of examples where you can find big bands and then do a little digging and find out, the lead singer was in a different band that wasn't successful. And, they did manage to get some things released, and tracking that stuff down. That's, opens up a whole new world of collectability.
For sure. And then, speaking of Dookie, this past year, they put out a 30th anniversary box set also, which has a ton of cool albums in it. I actually got it Santa Claus got it for my son for Christmas. And it's got 5 different LPs in it. It's got their Woodstock performance from 1994. Cool. It's got an unreleased Barcelona show. It's got 17 unreleased demos, 6 studio outtakes. All the albums are different colors, and all of the covers of the individual albums are slightly different. All pretty cool looking. Then it's got a whole bunch of other memorabilia in it.
Nice.
Doggy poop bags and air fresheners and posters, and that runs for about $150 to $200.
That's not too bad for everything you get.
Yeah, it's got a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah. I have to check that out.
Does anyone know or have any facts on like the later release stuff? Was stuff from 2000s and on, like post Dookie? I'm sure some of that vinyl, just because of the era, like before vinyl became popular again, some of those things may be, even harder to find than.
They have a live album, which is very rare. It goes for about $400 to $500. Called "Bullet in a Bible," released in 2009, and that one is hard to find. It's pretty hard to find a U.S. version. There's a European version that'll occasionally sell for $300 to $400 or up to $500 on Discogs. As far as American Idiot, obviously their probably second most famous album after Dookie, and one of the few cases of a rock band, being the greatest band in the world 10 to 15 years after their initial breakout, which is just an album which has hit after hit on it. And I don't know that any band has ever accomplished that, the extent to which that was a success at a time where rock music was kind of falling apart. It's really remarkable. It's just crazy. I don't know how valuable those albums are. I don't know if you guys know.
I think pretty much any album from big bands in the late 90s are valuable just because they were naturally rare and they just impress a lot.
Right, but I mean, American Idiot would have been.
Was that?
Was that 2004? Yeah,
that's like the real dead era of vinyl. Early 2000s, right. Nothing was pressed.
Right. I'm gonna do a quick check to see when see what that goes for sealed.
I was actually just reading about this misprint on a European copy of Dookie on Atlantic Records, where they misprinted half of Dookie and half of Houses of the Holy. So there's a couple releases where side A of the album is Dookie and side B is Houses of the Holy by Led Zeppelin.
Oh, that would be awesome.
It's packaged in Led Zeppelin in a regular Houses of the Holy reissue sleeve. But if you pull it out and listen to it, side A is the first 7 songs of Dookie.
That's so cool. Surprisingly, the 2004, they must have released quite a bit of them because they're not pricey at all. $45-$50 sealed. The 2004 American Idiot albums. I'm surprised by that.
Was there a US variant? I'm looking right now.
All I'm seeing is European for 2004. Yeah.
That might be Europe was. I mean, vinyl was pressed in Europe more. It lasted longer than it did in the US. Like through the 90s and early 2000s, there was more pressed in Europe. That's why a lot of times, like even the grunge albums, the European copies are usually cheaper because there's more of them out there.
Yeah, Insomniac is kind of the same way. I mean, that's a 1995, and I'm seeing really clean copies. There's a German pressing, if you don't mind German pressings, which I don't, for like $40 or best offer on eBay.
I remember when I bought that, being shocked at how cheap it was. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, like it popped up and I was like, wow, this is super cheap. I got to, buy it now. And over the next 2 years, I was like, wow, that doesn't go very, very much.
To stock up on some 90s Green Day albums.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
surprisingly cheap right now.
I was thinking the same thing, Paul, until I just looked, and there's, of the European version anyway, there's 290 of them for sale right now in Discogs. So it'd be tough to corner that market.
That's of American Idiot.
Yeah, but there's a US, and I have to dig into this, but there's a US and European version. I'm not sure the differences. There's only 2 of those available. I would say that would be the one to get, but I'd have to research it a little bit further and see really what the differences are.
Yeah, so for Insomniac, there's a competition that was going on back in 95 in Denmark to actually it's not in Denmark, to go see the band in Denmark. MTV was hosting the competition, and as a part of the giveaway for the competition, you got a bottle of insomnia pills branded Green Day, and they were just like candies. They're expired now, but I would definitely keep an eye out for those. Those sometimes pop up, and now they're kind of valuable. So if you want to complete your Insomniac collection, that's a tough one to find.
Yeah, just to give a shout out to Green Day as the father of a middle schooler, Green Day really succeeded in kind of maintaining their popularity into a new generation. They are one of those bands that like middle schoolers love. It's Green Day, Guns N' Roses, Nirvana. One of those three are the big one that all the every middle school boy loves. So kudos to them. And I think a lot of that has to do ultimately with bands that, I think I've said this before, bands that are willing to lend their logo to Target brand t-shirts, which is anyone who decides that they want to sell t-shirts at Target, those bands, stay relevant in the middle school zeitgeist. Well,
their lyrics are also very relatable to teenage guys, and then obviously we grew up on it, and so it's nostalgic, and the music is, it has a lot of feeling to it. You hear the anger, you can sing along to it, and so I think that it is good for multiple generations.
It's fantastic. Going back to that Dookie album, how rapid fire, it's like a machine gun. It's like every song is like 2.5 minutes, and just fires through. And every song, even if you don't, and you're shocked at how many you actually end up recognizing, even having not listened to it in forever. It's great. It's a masterpiece.
It had so many. How many singles did it have? 6?
I don't know, but a lot. I don't even remember which ones are singles because I listen to it so often. I can't remember which ones were actually released.
Did you remember Butch? It's funny. Like I love that album, but I feel like when we were in, I don't know, like high school, for like Green Day wasn't cool like Pearl Jam, Nirvana was. They weren't really. It was like a different. Now that it's all kind of lumped into 90s alternative, but back then it was, they weren't Seattle, they weren't grunge, and it just wasn't as cool.
I remember them being like popular with like the skateboard crew, like all the kids who used to skateboard.
Yeah, I think they were cool. They just, they were cool to kind of people who hung out with different people than we did, and so it's probably the actual cool people. So they were probably actually really cool, and we just weren't. So I don't know. I guess
probably why I like them now. And
so what do you guys think? I mean, if you want to, you guys have any other thoughts before we pick our VMG 100?
No, they actually just released them. I was seeing if there's any kind of special limited. There's a couple limited edition ones that they just came out this year.
Yeah, no.
Saviors is the name of the new album.
Yep. Famously, they've been in the news the last, few months. They famously threw a shot at Donald Trump, which is a genius marketing version. Genius marketing move, because all you have to do is say something about anything political, and one of Fox News or MSNBC will pick it up and create some sort of fake controversy about it, and it
gets the word out.
Like free controversy. Nothing like free controversy. It's amazing how easy it is to just get into the news by just say something bad about your politician of choice, and someone will put you in the news. So they're still able to figure out easily how to get into the news. Congratulations.
It's like what you were trying to do with our previous podcast.
Right. Right. No one took the bait. No one took the bait. No one wanted to get canceled.
No one wanted to fill in the blank.
No.
Well, see, so I just looked it up. So Dookie had 4 singles: "When I Come Around," "Welcome to Paradise," "Basket Case," and "Longview."
Really?
Rolling.
She wasn't a single.
I can't believe she wasn't a single.
According to Wikipedia, I don't see it
Wow.
on there.
Wow.
And Longview too. Was this?
Yeah, Longview was
No,
on
he said
there.
Longview.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Longview, Basket Case, Welcome to Paradise, and When I Come Around.
She gets more radio play on Lithium, I think, than any other Green Day song.
Yeah, I know.
Always
I've- I feel like it's kind of like the Metallica Black Album, where it's like every song is almost a single. It's like
Yeah, I know.
you
Yeah.
recognize every one of them.
Rolling Stone put it on the 500 greatest albums of all times list, and they received a Grammy Award for Best Alternative Album, and it peaked number 2 on the Billboard 200. So it was certified diamond by RIAA and sold over 20 million albums. I would probably have to say that Green Day Dookie would make the VMG 100 list.
I agree. I personally like the German green hype sticker with the number on it. I just think that's the one I think is the coolest. The individually numbered one.
I agree. For me, that gets you like their most iconic album, but somewhat limited variant of it to make it unique.
Is that variant relatively accessible? Like, is it available?
It's a 10,000 press, so it's 10,000 is a pretty big number.
But it goes it's pretty pricey. I mean, it's in the mid hundreds, 300 to 500.
Okay.
If I recall correctly.
But it's not impossible to find. Like, it's usually there's copies for sale fairly often.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The
Cool.
39 Smooth green variant that one's harder to find. There's not like you can't just go on Discogs or eBay and one will be for sale. You gotta kind of wait for it.
Cool. Well, that's it. Do we all agree? Green Day Dookie,
that's the one.
The German numbered version.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool, awesome. Well, I think that was a good episode, guys. Now let's go and listen to our Green Day albums and enjoy it all over again. As we have for so many years, and we'll check us out next time. Episode 15 of Vintage Media Grading, the podcast. This is us signing out. Have a good one, guys. Have a good week.
Thanks, guys.
You.
Yeah.